Hi, my name is Michel Baumann and I'm the Partner Technical Lead for Microsoft Teams Rooms in EMEA. Welcome to the Partner Enablement Program. This session is for all you sales folks out there. We named this program Sirius internally, and that's for a reason. Because Sirius is the brightest star in the sky, and we want you to be the brightest star in the ecosystem. Over to Mo and Rob.
Thank you, Michelle, for that great introduction. And I'd like to welcome everybody to today's sales session. So my name is Mohammed Khalifa. Everybody calls me Mo. And I'd love to introduce my colleague here.
Thank you, Mo. My name is Robert Carlson, and I'm Rob for you guys.
And together, we are the partner technology strategists for Microsoft Teams Rooms devices across the whole of the EMEA region. I'm going to hand you over to Robert to introduce the session for you. And we'd love to get the next 45 minutes of your time where you're going to learn tons about Microsoft Teams Rooms devices.
Right. So we're going to take you through a sales presentation, which really pitches how Teams and Teams meetings is the best solution to have meetings on, together with Teams devices, of course, which brings the best experience into your meeting room. We'll talk you through the value pillars of why this is important, how we are managing these devices from a security perspective, what are the licensing, and so on. So this is really a good session for you guys to get the best out of how to pitch, introduce, and talk Teams rooms with your customers.
So kicking it off, I'm sure you've heard everything about COVID-19, but actually today, I want to really set the scene around Microsoft Teams Rooms devices. And this particular slide that you're looking at right now, when we fast forward the last 2 years to today, we kind of categorize the last 2 years in what we call respond, recover, and reimagine. And most of our customers, when they come over to us today, they're kind of in that recover or reimagine phase. I mean, take yourselves back a couple of years back, March 2020. Most organizations were in this respond phase where we were panicking, going crazy, trying to grab hold of every single laptop, webcam, table. If you were lucky, you got a chair, and just to be able to work from home. Fast forward 2 years down the line, most organizations are kind of in between what we call recovery and reimagine. Recovery being, what is the strategy for the immediate future? How are we returning back to work with our staff members and keeping things safe, but also reimagining how work is now moving towards the future? And if you think of the last 2 years of how we've been working, it's been crazy. Nobody wants to go back to a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 job anymore. When we look at kind of how hybrid work has transformed the way we work, me personally, I have to book toilet breaks and lunch breaks just to actually get some time in the day. And I'm sure it's the same for you, Robert. And when we think of some positives, we end up doing a lot of work in a short amount of time, but we kind of miss out on some of the more kind of relaxing aspects of where you get time to kind of reset yourself. Now, about a year and a half ago, when we were all kind of coming back out of lockdown 1.0, if you want to call it that, we saw organizations kind of making the move back to work. And some organizations were telling their staff members that, hey, look, 50% of the workforce will be returning back to work. They'll work there for 2 weeks and then swap over with another 50%. It actually didn't work because we had COVID outbreaks and people were isolating in bubbles, etc. So it didn't quite work. Fast forward to today, now we're seeing kind of a different way of hybrid working where organizations are telling their staff members that, hey, look, 30% of your work week or 2 days in your work week needs to be in the office and the remainder you pick and choose where you work from. And this, of course, poses a whole bunch of new challenges. And this particular slide is quite an interesting one. I absolutely love it. It kind of puts it into perspective. We look at pre-pandemic people in the office had the advantage. It was very easy for me to kind of run over to Rob, grab him, bring him into my meeting and say, hey, Rob, we need your input. But then during the pandemic, we were all on that same level playing field. Regardless of where you sat within the organization, we all had the same challenges. We all had the dog jump in and bark in and the kids going crazy in the background. But then fast forward to today, as we move towards hybrid work, the biggest keyword that now comes out of it is equality. So some of the challenges we find today, I mean, when we look at the last couple of years of working from home and the advancements Microsoft's made on the Teams platform, we have a great experience working from home. We have good views at home, great cameras, great mics, great speakers. But then as we start returning back into work and we walk into our offices are not as good, or the meeting rooms more specifically, are not as good as the experience we get at home. And when we start looking at, are we ready for the workplace? We look at equality. We look at what is the experience like inside of the meeting room versus what it's like remotely for us working from home. We know hybrid work is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. COVID's here to stay. That's not going anymore. We just have to learn to live with it. But it's completely transformed the way we work, the way we live, and the way we kind of look at life generally. Collaboration is critical. Working from home has been challenging, and then moving back into the office, we now have two sets of people working in different environments. We have people in person, and then people actually, inside of the office and working from home. But then how do we collaborate better together? We have all sorts of different canvases, digital whiteboards, analog whiteboards. And, depending on who uses what, are we creating that equality?
And I think what we also need to consider and take into action is that we have thought about the sizes of the rooms, the amount of people who will be in that room, and then we have tailored the rooms from that. But I think what we learned also is that we need to care for the different use cases and what we're doing in these rooms. Because if we have done the meet and present version of it, it has been the regular setting with a long table and a few chairs, and then we have been looking at the screen or each other in that sense of someone has been speaking and presenting and the rest have been chiming in. But very regular and traditional type of meeting room. What we have experienced now is when going back to the office and also having people who's not joining that room, but staying at other places and spaces, we need to care to have this creative workplace where we can all join the same digital canvas, where we can all feel that we are contributing and not being left out. So I think we also need to think, for what are we using our spaces for? What type of use cases or meeting solutions would you like to do in this meeting room? And of course, we also tried to have webinars, and we have done this in large scale during the pandemic. And we have learned that doing webinars on Teams is a great way to send that message one to many. So that's also another type of meeting room that you might build. A room really to show off and to share your thoughts and knowledge to your colleagues around the world.
And if I may interject, that's absolutely spot on, Robert. That is quite key. And if we take into account normally our customers coming over to us, 99% or 9 times out of 10, our customers will come up to us saying, hey, Rob, we are a Teams house. We have 3 buildings with X amount of meeting rooms varying in X amount of sizes. Please quote me. That's usually the information we get. But it's super, super important for us as sales professionals to be actually asking the correct questions to our customers and our resellers and whoever we're speaking to actually identify exactly what Robert said, which is identifying meeting room personas. And I think that's quite key. Make sure we do the effective questioning as part of the investigations that we do for our customers.
And we'll come back to that a bit later on, and we'll show you also how you can build a matrix of this and help your customers to really understand the value of it. But Teams as a platform also needs to have the best devices, of course. And we have devices in all categories of use cases, from the personal space where I use a headset or a speaker pack or what have you, to the largest meeting room, of course. And all of these devices should be Teams certified. Because the Teams certification, that's really a quality stamp of having your device connect to the service in the best way. It's also something that brings you a familiar touch. So when I connect my headset, when I connect my speaker pack, when I go into the meeting room, I recognize this as a Teams experience, no matter what type of device I'm using. And it also brings more value. So we have introduced connections between the platform, like Teams Cortana in the meeting room space, so that I can invoke Cortana from the room using that device. We have the purple button on the headset. When I use that one, I will bring up Teams on my PC, and so on and so on. So we're having these interactions between the Teams platform, meetings as a solution, and then, of course, the software and the hardware from our vendors out there. It's also a quality stamp. So when we have a certified device for any type of use case, it has been something that has been going on into extensive testing in different use cases, in different categories. So a camera that is tailored for a large meeting room, really also can handle that from the depth perspective, from the width perspective of framing people in the right way and such. So it's really also something that you can rely on, having that best Teams experience. And from an IT perspective, of course, a Teams device for a meeting room is also something that you can manage. And we'll take you through that in a bit as well. But the Teams Admin Center is the place to go to understand what type of devices you have, what's the health, and what's the calling experience as well. So we really are using also the platform to give you feedback back, of course. And that, I would say, is also something that brings that value for you as a customer in the end, and for you as a partner to share to your customers of the benefits of having Teams certified devices into your meeting rooms and into your customers. So it brings that ease of use. It's something that you can manage. It's something that also elevates the experience, of course, in bringing that best Teams experience. So a Teams meeting is, of course, done best with a Teams device. And that, of course, then levels out that we also have other types of solutions in meeting rooms, and we have customers who have tried different ways of doing this.
Yeah.
So what's your perspective of these challenges that you might have?
Absolutely. And you know, you're absolutely right, Robert. And this is one of the challenges that we have today. A lot of customers are unaware of, you know, the types of devices and the types of platforms that we have, especially with Microsoft Teams Rooms. And it's, you know, take yourselves back a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. It's very easy for our customers to kind of build their own meeting room. You could grab hold of a laptop or a PC, stick Windows on it, stick the Windows version of Teams and O365, connect it to a camera, mic, speakers, and hey, presto, we've got a meeting room. Does it work short term? Yes, absolutely it does. But is it secure? Is it maintainable? Is it manageable? Absolutely not. PC, by its definition, is a personal computer designed for a single user, not really designed for groups of people in mind. So when you're using a BYOD type of device, very easily you start getting security risks. So customers may go online, or people may go online and download applications or log into websites and forget to log out, thus causing security risks. Very quickly, those types of BYOD solutions become clogged up. The cache starts filling up. Things start slowing down. And very quickly, you get crashes. I know this firsthand. I used to sell these devices back in the day. Very easy to sell, hard to maintain. But then on the flip side, we also have your more traditional BYOD solutions, like just having a webcam, you know, a camera, mic, speakers, and then driving that experience from your laptop. In theory, it's very, very easy to use. Absolutely, we agree. However, when we compare it with a Microsoft Teams Rooms solution, which we actually call a native Teams solution, there's a whole range and a whole bunch of new different types of benefits that you can have. For example, ease of use. Regardless of where you may be, regardless of what type of devices that you're using, it's that same consistent experience across the board. We then look at flexibility, which we will touch on as we move through this presentation, different devices to suit different needs. For me, the most important part is what we call security and management. So that same consistent experience across the board, but also very easy for you to manage, very easy for you to secure down from an IT perspective. When we look at USB connected peripherals driving from your own laptop, it could be and can be very often different experiences across the board. And then you have driver issues. You can't control what's going on because you're driving that from your own laptop. So we would always recommend go for a native Teams solution. And if there is a need for some BYOD, a lot of our OEM partners already have BYOD type cables that come out of a Microsoft Teams Rooms device that enable you to bypass temporarily if required. So let's take a look at value proposition. So when we look at Teams Rooms and we look at our presentation today, we wanted to run through the 4 different pillars that really build up this presentation and build up what it is with Microsoft Teams Rooms devices. We have inclusiveness, we have easy to use for all, we have flexibility, and we have security and managed. So let's dive straight in. If you remember at the very beginning of the presentation, I spoke to you about hybrid work and how things have changed and, you know, how the differences are now coming up from in-person meetings versus virtual meetings. And for us at Microsoft, inclusivity is quite key. Equality is quite key. To have that same experience across the board, regardless of where you may be. And one of the newer features that has had a lot of noise in recent months and a lot of our customers are super, super excited, is a feature called Front Row, which I really just want to touch on very briefly. So Front Row is our brand new video layout that we brought across to Microsoft Teams Rooms devices. It's designed to foster that deeper sense of connection with remote attendees. So as you know, right now, working from home with a grid view, it's perfect. It does the job. But then when we move into a meeting room space, all of a sudden that experience changes. And what we want to do with Front Row is actually make the floor equal, so equality. And I'm going to run you through a quick video which you're going to be able to see. And to start off with this video, the first thing that you'll notice is we have curved tables. And the furniture layouts of the meetings actually get people to kind of face forward and face the right screen. When we look at the Front Row layout, we have on the right-hand side, we have access to chat. So when people are chatting remotely inside of that meeting, people inside of the room are also feeling included and inclusive as part of that meeting. On the left-hand side, we then have today, because it's in preview mode, we have who's raised their hand first. And then in the very near future, we'll be launching some new updates, which will then bring what we call Microsoft Loop components, which will bring things like meeting room notes and agenda items. And you know, the sky's the limit when it comes down to what we can add there. And then, of course, across the bottom, you're now going to see more lifelike size images within their own windows as well. So it feels like you're actually talking to that person inside of that room. As part of room design, we also encourage our customers to place cameras at eye level. So it's, you know, very different if you've got a rectangular table. And I'm going to do the experiment here for you today, where if I'm talking to Robert, because Robert's video is showing on this side, but my camera is across there. It's not a very natural experience because I'm looking that way, but you know, you're looking at me from there. However, when we place cameras at eye level, it feels a lot more natural. Emotion then kicks in and it's a better experience. Also, as part of the cameras, in the next few months or so, we'll be launching new firmware updates for cameras. And some cameras are what we would deem or class as intelligent cameras. And intelligent cameras will enable you to actually frame individual videos. So instead of having a room full of a wide view of just 3 people, those 3 people will have their own individual feed. And then we'll even be able to get down to the stage where we'll be able to identify that person and add their name to the list and create an identity. We're also going to start bringing AI capability. So if I raise my hand on camera, the camera will realize I'm raising my hand and actually add it as, you know, a raised hand feature or a live reaction inside of Teams. So with Front Row, it's designed to scale across different room sizes as well. So you can have it in a small room, you can have it in medium room or in a large room. But remember, it's not designed for all types of rooms. We have many different layouts across on the Teams platform, which allows you to pick the perfect layout based on your room and based on meeting room personas, which is what Robert spoke about a little earlier on.
One thing you might add also, I think that the front row experience, it scales, of course, through a 1 or 2 screen solution. It doesn't matter. We can just see more people in that front row experience. Second thing, I think that we also should consider that the chat experience, that's so important today. That's a parallel meeting really going on in the meeting today, because we have gotten used to have parallel discussions that are connected to what's going on the screen and the actual meeting. So when I'm looking at the recording today, I also look at the chat because that's so vital. So having that brought up to the screen for the people in the room makes them not having to have their computer on. So it also brings added value so that we are following along with all things happening in the meeting today. Because the meeting today is not the same as the meeting 2 years ago.
Absolutely agree. And that's a key point. The meeting today isn't the same as the meetings we had 2 years ago. And that resonates so true today. Now, when we look at Teams Rooms, I mean, Microsoft Teams Rooms today, with the bundles that you can buy already, are already amazing. With Front Row, with Companion Mode, and half of these capabilities that we have. But actually, we can really enhance meeting rooms by bringing in additional equipment into that meeting room space. For example, we can bring in a Microsoft Surface Hub, and we've got a feature which is what we call coordinated meetings. So for a second, I just want you to imagine you have a medium to a large size meeting room. You've already kitted it out with a Microsoft Teams Rooms device with the touch controller in the middle of the table. And then you've got a Surface Hub tucked away in the corner. Now, as soon as a user walks into the room, they see the touch controller on the table, they see their calendar and a one-touch join button. I simply walk up and I press the join button. That automatically fires up the cameras, mics, and speakers inside of that room. But what it will also do is automatically bring in that Surface Hub into the meeting as well. So the Surface Hub dials itself into the meeting. It automatically turns off its cameras, mics, and speakers, but kicks off the Microsoft whiteboard for you. Because in reality, the Surface Hub knows, hey, the Microsoft Teams Rooms device has better audio and video than me, so I'm going to let that device handle it. And the MTR device knows that Surface Hub's better at collaboration in terms of the whiteboard, so I'm going to let that. So effectively, with one single touch, we can dial in multiple pieces of equipment in the room and bring up great audio, video, and great collaboration. So going back to when we were talking about meeting room personas and meet and co-create options, having a Surface Hub as part of the mix with the Microsoft Teams Rooms device gives you a phenomenal meeting room space. But what happens if, let's say, Rob, you're sitting inside of a meeting room space and I'm working from home, and all of a sudden you get up and you start using an analog whiteboard, a traditional whiteboard on the wall? What happens then?
Yeah, and take it 2 years back as well, or even longer back, when we didn't really go into a Teams meeting, we perhaps dialed into that meeting. So we had all that experience. So what happens is that the people in the room, they will still be able to be creative and be aware and also contribute to that whiteboarding experience. But we who's outside of the room, we are sitting here with our personal client, we will be left out because we will not hear, because we will actually be, I guess, standing around that whiteboard, and we will be facing that one, and we will not even know what's being going on because we don't see the actual things being created on our whiteboard. So, and this is, I would say, not a new solution, but we really need to bring that to life in many meeting rooms because there are so many analog whiteboards out there that we still have and we will still have for a long time. But just having that simple thing of adding a camera to that whiteboard and bringing that into the actual meeting and present that brings us all into the same experience. And if I've been doing that, and if I was the one who was really writing on that whiteboard, you will also see me in like semi-transparent mode, because I could then go up to the whiteboard. You will see what I'm writing, but I will not be really covering the actual whiteboard. So it's a fantastic experience. And we have actually also built that into your personal device. So you can try it out at home if you have a whiteboard and then point your camera to it. So there's a whiteboard feature also for your personal PC experience now. So it's a very powerful thing.
It's a surreal experience. It's amazing. And yes, that's, like Rob said, you can absolutely try it at home. So the next time you're on the Teams call, go to the top right, you'll see the share icon. Hit the share icon, you'll see content camera. Hit the content camera, and you don't even have to use a whiteboard, right? You can use a white piece of paper, and if you put your hand over it, it kind of makes you into a ghost. Now, inside of a meeting room space, of course, this is a bigger experience. But the key word here is equality, making sure that we provide an equal experience, not just for the people inside of that room, but also people at home that feel connected as well.
And I think if we then spin off the equality thing, I think also if you just think about having that large meeting room, having people sitting, you don't really see them, it could be hard to know who's who. Having something that will really bring people to life and that you can understand who is in the actual meeting room, that's really bringing AI features to the room. And you talked about the speaker and the intelligent camera before. And this is just showing off the power of it. So if we have this speaker and microphone, because I think it's more perhaps of the microphone thing here, that could identify people. It could really also bring them to the meeting. So if you're invited to the meeting, you go into a meeting room with that device on the table, you will be recognized. And you will then be brought both to the roster list of the people who's attending, but also to the transcription. So we will be able to understand who is speaking instead of just having the room speaking, because the room is not a person. That's like an identity that could be 4 people or 10 people. But with this type of technology, we can really identify who is who in the room and bring that to life. And that's just the first thing of bringing AI features to the meeting rooms. So I think this is fantastic. Try it out in a meeting room. And from a privacy perspective, there are controls, of course, to manage this, and so that your customers also have the possibility to tailor this experience and for an end user to either do this or say, no, I don't feel comfortable with this. So there's a lot of controls as well regarding this.
Intelligent speakers, absolutely love them. Now, Teams panels. So, of course, not only do we look at the inside of the room, but we also look on the outside of the room as well. And we have from our partners what we call Teams panels. So very simply, a Teams panel sits on the outside of the room. It has LEDs running down the side, so green means the room is available and red means the room's booked. In fact, it could also be purple. You can change the color to Teams Purple if you really want to. On one side, on the right-hand side, of course, you have access to the calendar of the room. And you can check in and join into the calendar and see what's next. So very simple, straightforward. But where we differ from the rest of the competition is actually where we enable customers to have what we call line of business apps applied on. So here on screen, you're going to see a whole bunch of different apps. And let's start off with one of them, catering. Now, you haven't seen me in real life, but if you ever get to see me in real life, I'm like the shortest guy on the planet. In fact, I'm standing on like a little platform just to get as tall as Robert today. In the old days, if I ever needed to run a meeting physically and order teas and coffees, I would have had to run down to reception, order the teas and coffees and run back. And because I'm small, I got little legs, so it takes me ages to get there. However, now with the Teams panel, I can simply walk to the outside of the room, press the catering button, order my teas and coffees, and then 2 steps back into the room. Of course, we can then expand line of business apps as well. For example, an organization can actually upload their floor plan of their building into Azure. And let's imagine I walk up to a room and the room's busy. I can actually bring up the floor plan, look for additional meeting rooms and book that meeting room directly from a panel. And it will also give me walking directions directly to that room. And then there's another feature that is going to be going live soon, which is what we call Knock Knock internally. I'm not sure what it's going to be called fully, but Knock Knock I love, and I hope it keeps that name. But gone are those days where you knock on the door because you're looking at the meeting and you're thinking, right, it's 10 o'clock. They're already eating 5 minutes into my meeting, and you open the door. In today's COVID world, we don't want to be opening doors up. So using the Knock Knock feature, it will effectively alert the room inside to say, hey, there's people waiting outside. As part of that, we're also expanding capabilities of Microsoft Teams Rooms devices to work with other devices with sensors, like people counting cameras. So as an example, you could assign a meeting room to say, hey, this meeting room is 4 people and no more. As soon as the 4th person walks into that room, it will alert not just the room inside, but also on the outside of the room to say room is at capacity. So when we look at Teams panels versus kind of everything else out there, we actually bring a lot of value. And the best part is, if you already have a Microsoft Teams room and you add a Teams panel to that room, we share the license of that room. There's no additional license required for a Teams panel. Effectively, all you're paying for is the cost of the device and deployment.
So, if you now have standardized on Teams Rooms devices, you have the platform, you might still have the need to engage with other platforms. And of course, you can do that from a Teams Rooms. So one way that we have presented is the direct guest join feature. And that allows a Teams Rooms device to understand an invite from a WebEx meeting, from a Zoom meeting, and just be able then to dial into that meeting. So actually what we're doing is that we're spinning up a web browser underlying and then just doing a web guest join to that meeting platform. It's native, it doesn't require any license, it just works. And the same goes, of course, vice versa. So if a customer then, your customer, your partner, anywhere out there, has another platform, they will be able then to join Teams meetings, of course. So it's a combination of all a collaboration, I would say. And we're bringing more vendors to this as well. So we will release BlueJeans and GoToMeet to this platform as well. So that's when you need to go into another platform's meeting, then you're using direct guest join. The other way around, that's when you have perhaps a mixed environment. So you have standardized on Teams, you're using Teams meetings, you have a set of Teams Rooms devices, of course, but you still need to perhaps use these other types of vendors' devices endpoints in your rooms for a short future, of course. Then you need to have some sort of solution to bridge those devices into your meetings. So the Cloud Video Interop service, that's a great way to standardize. So when I send out a meeting invite, that will also contain a link and a code to this type of SIP device to be able to join my Teams meeting. And this is an open forum, so we have multiple vendors building solutions on this. So we have the platform and then we have a few vendors then supporting us and building their bridge towards Teams. So it's a great way to really leverage your Teams Rooms investment, but still be able to both join other platforms and for legacy devices that you might have in your organization to join your Teams meetings, of course.
And then, of course, we have a whole range of different Teams devices out there. And one thing that's quite key is regardless which device it is that you use, whether you take one from Logitech, from Poly, from Crestron, we from Microsoft want to ensure that you get that same consistent experience across the board. So whether you're using any one of these devices, you'll be happy to know that when you walk into an office, be it a small room, a medium room, or a large room, it is that same consistent experience. And that's quite key for us as a manufacturer.
So to be able then to also scale in different room sizes, and also as we talked about different settings or different use cases, you really have to have that flexibility that there's a Teams rooms solution for all types of rooms and also for all types of work that you would like to do in these rooms. So it's really easy then to find guidance from Microsoft on how to tailor this experience for your customers. We have made up drawings, we have made up recommendations for you to use. So when you're thinking on how to take this experience to your customers, we can really help you, support you to build that, of course. So no matter what room solution you need, there is a Teams room solution out there for you, of course.
And of course, there's many different types of devices out there. And what we try and do to make things a little easier is kind of categorize our devices into different bucket sets. So we'll start off from the right-hand side. On the right-hand side, we have what we call all-in-ones. And these are typically devices like the Microsoft Surface Hub, an all singing, all dancing, collaborative display with cameras, mic speakers, and Windows OS built in. In terms of collaboration, it is what we would deem as best in class for Microsoft whiteboarding. However, it isn't the cheapest piece of kit out there. We're totally aware of that. Works great with the Microsoft Teams Rooms device. As we move to the center, we have what we call our integrated solutions. And integrated typically are Microsoft Teams Rooms on the Android platform. These are all-in-ones, so a camera, mic, speakers, all built into a single unit and designed to be easy to install. So it simply goes above or below a TV screen. So a single USB that comes out, HDMI, network cable power, and away you go. And then, of course, on the left-hand side, by far the most popular is what we call our modular solutions, which are typically Microsoft Teams Rooms on the Windows platform. And we call them modular because you have separate cameras, mics, and speakers, which means you're able to then scale across into different room sizes. And if we look at different OSs, what I'll do is I'll hand over to you, Rob, to kind of give us the differences between Windows and Android.
Yeah, go back like 2 years ago, we launched the new collaboration bar solution. And that was actually the name that we used when we started off the Android journey. And that was because of the form factor. So we really did that form factor together with our vendors to care for these smaller room sizes. So it was a purpose-built solution, lockdown, of course, and made for these smaller rooms. Over the years, we have seen customers really wanting to use the same type of technology and experience, but scale it into different room solutions. So now I would say both the Windows and the Android solutions are quite the same. And from an engineering perspective, we have the same type of movement to new features and functions. It might be a bit different from a timing scale when something will be brought to live, but the front row experience, as an example, will come to the Android-based solutions as well. So from that perspective, I would say it's more for the customer to choose what type of management would I like to do? What type of solution would I like to bring? But you will be able to both have modular solutions on the Android-based devices or have made more like lockdown, tailored solutions also going on. So you can choose.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, when we look at our OEM partners, we have a whole range of great partners out there that provide Microsoft Teams Rooms on not just kind of the Windows platform, but the Android platform and different form factors to suit different types of needs, be it a small room, medium room, large room, or even custom builds out there. But let's take a little look at the components of what builds a Microsoft Teams Rooms device.
Yeah, so I use this picture to really just point out that a Teams Rooms device always has some sort of compute. And it's not just any compute, it's a certified and tailored compute for the room experience, which means that we have vendors out there that are building these computes and they are certifying them as Teams Rooms devices, either on Android or on Windows. And that's crucial because then we can really make this experience the best one. We can say that having a Teams Rooms device in your meeting room is built for that. And the compute part is really then the essence of it. So you can't take any compute and put a Windows image on it because that's not a Teams room. It's a certified and specific device tailored solution. Then around this with the peripherals, it might be different solutions around there. but there's a certified solution for this as well.
Got it. So remember, stay certified. Certified is the way forward. Now, of course, it can be quite confusing to try and work out the types of devices or what devices should be used. And this particular slide, I really like using. And, feel free to screenshot it if you want and use it for your customers as well. But effectively, what you'll find is across the top, you'll see the most common rooms you'll find across an estate. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see the different types of meeting room personas: meet and present, and meet and co-create. And let's use the first example, the first column on the left-hand side as an example. If you are in a large office or a focus room and you typically just do meet and present type meetings, absolutely, Microsoft Teams Rooms and Android in an integrated solution would be ideal. With a touchscreen, it will do the job for you. However, if you need to go ahead and collaborate on Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and use whiteboarding, potentially a Surface Hub could be a better option. Of course, if it's out of budget, then you can absolutely substitute it with a Microsoft Teams Rooms device and combine it with a touchscreen to give you some whiteboarding capabilities. But as we start moving into like the traditional meeting room spaces, the small, medium, and large meeting room spaces, you'll notice modular and Microsoft Teams Rooms is king across those spaces because of its scalability. But from a Microsoft standpoint, the very best of a meeting room is actually a combination of both devices by having a Surface Hub and a Microsoft Teams Rooms device and a feature called coordinated join inside of that same room. So let's take a look at security and management. How do we secure these devices? Now, at Microsoft, just like Robert said when we were talking about certification, we work very closely with our OEM partners to give them a massive list of things that these devices must have before we certify them, ranging from things like a TPM chip on board for security, all the way down to cable management. How hard is it to pull out the cable from the back of the machine? Of course, on this slide, you'll see different pillars that talk about hardware and software and networking and also managed services, which we'll touch on in a second. But only do they satisfy every single one of those needs do we then certify it to be a Microsoft Teams certified device. And we have published on our Microsoft Teams Rooms admin guide a security document. So if you have customers asking about security and what Microsoft has done about it, do check out that link.
Then you, of course, need to connect some sort of license to this. And we have different licenses that are tailored for rooms. So they are really purpose-built with the feature set that you have. If you go back a bit, many of our customers there were using the traditional end-user licenses, like an E3 or an E5. Now we are really recommending and guiding our customers to use either a Teams Rooms Standard or a Teams Rooms Premium license, because that's the way that you will be having the right license for the right equipment. They come in, as I said, in two flavors, and both contains the same feature sets. So both licenses have what you need to have your room working, being able to dial in, dial out, and having all these both Skype and Teams features that you need. They're also manageable from an Intune perspective. So you can also use those features to really take care of your device. But just going into the standard license and having that as the first, that brings your device also into Teams Admin Center. And the Teams Admin Center is really the place to go if you as a customer or you as a partner supporting your customers are helping them to manage their Teams Rooms devices or other Teams devices as well. So there's a Teams device section in Teams Admin Center where you can first have an overview of all devices that this customer have in their tenant. Secondly, you can also see the health. Are they connected? Do we have connection to the peripherals? Do we also have like a updated software on it? Because we can also go in and update this software from Teams Admin Center to have the latest Teams Room software. We can also see health from the perspective that we can look at meetings that has been going on previously. So we can go back and we can see if there was an issue in some meeting and really use that for support and to go and see what caused this disturbance. So Teams Admin Center is the place to go for a customer who has their own capabilities, or for a customer who, with role-based access, give you as a partner these capabilities as well. And just recently, we also added Surface Hub to the Teams Rooms, to the Teams Admin Center, so you can also go and have those incorporated into the same pane of glass. Going on to the premium service.
Yeah, so what happens if you can't manage your devices yourself, or maybe don't have the resource to manage devices yourself. That's where you would take out Microsoft Teams Room's premium license. So just like on the standard license, you get all the features to get your room up and running. But the key difference by having a premium license is it enables you to have Microsoft managed devices for you. And the key difference between this and everything else that you'll generally find out there is Microsoft's managed service is what we call a proactive service, which means we are actively monitoring the network on all the devices. And if we detect any issues, even before customers detect issues, we can essentially enable a fix. Now, of course, when we look at our managed services, this isn't designed to be in competition with what you as an organization may be already providing in terms of managed services. Generally, 9 times out of 10, a partner's managed service tends to be a reactive service, which means if there's a problem, customer calls up the managed services, you guys then go out and do a break fix. Whereas with Microsoft Teams Rooms, we don't actually put people on the ground. We can work in conjunction with you as a partner to do the proactive part, and then you as a partner can then go to customer site to enable fixes. So how does it work? Let's give you a bit of an example. We had a customer not long ago, a global customer, whose networking team don't speak too much with the facilities team that look after the rooms or the meeting rooms out there. And it's typical with most large organizations, departments don't talk to each other. Anyway, the networking team decided to push out a time server change without letting facilities know. Now, in a reactive model, when that time server change gets pushed out, it will automatically sign out all Teams devices that haven't been updated. And what would have happened in that scenario is a user would have walked into the room, seeing the Microsoft Teams Rooms device already signed out, picks up the phone and calls support. IT support then come in the room and mess about with cables, can't figure out what the problem is, raises a ticket into OEM, into Microsoft. It could be days, it could be weeks before we figure out what went wrong there. Now, with a proactive service, with like Microsoft Teams Rooms Premium, we automatically, because we have AI bots that sit on the network, they automatically detect this time server change. And as soon as we detect the time server change, we knew what was going to happen. So we auto remediate all the devices on the network. We then ping out a message to not only the customer, but also a partner if they're applied as a role-based user on there. We ping out an alert to say, hey, we just figured out we had a problem. We fixed that issue, and this is how you would avoid it in the future. This next slide here just kind of gives you a snapshot in terms of what the portal looks like. So you can see very quickly where there's a BIOS update made available. We've already assigned it to Microsoft. We'll apply the update. We're good to go across there. But then as we look down at the bottom, we can see that we've identified a multi-factor authentication issue. If we can't physically get there, we would actually tell you how to fix that device. So we can use you as a partner and send you the message to say, hey, there's a problem in room 101. This is how you would fix it. And then you would apply your own services, go to site, fix the device, and away you go. So in a nutshell, if you as a customer or your customer can manage devices themselves, Teams Room standard licensing absolutely will do the job for them. However, if they do not have the resource to manage devices themselves, then definitely do check out Teams Rooms Premium as that licensing option.
Okay, we're moving to a close, and we would just like to point you out to some of the resources that you have for you so that you can go and deep dive on trainings and find assets and resources that we have out there. But the first notion, of course, is to go and get the badge. The solution sales badge for Teams Rooms. It's out there. Go to Expert Zone, and then you search for Teams Rooms, and then you could do a training, and then you have some questions that you need to answer. If you succeed and if you're passed, then you will have your badge. Attach that to your LinkedIn profile, attach that to your email signature, so that you can show your customers that you have got the training to have a Teams Rooms discussion with them, with a professional touch of having this knowledge and deeper understanding.
Get yourself those bragging rights. And the majority of the questions you'll be able to answer simply by watching today's presentation, of course. So go get your badge, go out there, look on Expert Zone, and make sure you guys do that as well. Of course, from a partner perspective as well, we've added the link above here for you. So Teams Rooms Marketing, we provide a whole bunch of different assets for you as an organization to use, whether it's assets where you want to try and articulate the value of a native Teams Room solution versus a BYOD or a USB type solution, to kind of just standard marketing material, email shots, web banners, etc. Make sure you share the link link with your marketing teams if they don't have it already, and you will absolutely be able to get all the assets that you could possibly need to get your Teams rooms practice up and running.
Next, there's a great set of assets for you to go learn. So take your mobile, use this QR code, and then get to the learning site for partners. There we have a fantastic track that really contains a lot of material that is tailored for Teams rooms and how to set them up, how to build a practice around that, and a lot of other things, how to manage and such. So go there, tons of hours of training for you to get educated.
And of course, last but not least, don't forget that we also have a Yammer community that you can have access to as well. So the link is up there via Yammer, Teams calling and meetings. Any questions, we have experts on hand across there, and you can ask at your heart's content, and there will be someone to answer those questions for you.
There are also good assets of presentation material that we have done in the boot camps. The boot camps, for you who haven't attended before, that's a set of great webinars where people from Corp mainly present to you the latest and greatest around Teams rooms, device management, everything that you need to understand and have a good practice on. It will be quite soon, but the recorded or the on-demand sessions are available since before on this link as well.
With that in mind, we'd like to thank you for joining our session today. Hopefully you've learned some great things. Keep your eyes open. We will be sending out some further content and speak to your Microsoft account managers. With that, thank you so much from me, and thank you so much from Robert.
Thank you.